Robert. Welcome to the Go Big podcast. It's an honor to have you on our show. And I couldn't help but notice the titles you have on your profile. You're an author, an accountant, a podcaster, and the champion of creativity. Tell us more about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me here on the Go Big podcast. I hope what's going to go big is not my waistline, but my pockets. So I hope that this podcast is going to help us to go big in our thinking, and that's what I love doing. So my name is Robert Belle. I am a champion of creativity, as you heard. All the titles and all the accolades that I have sum up in me championing creativity. Why creativity? Is because I believe that's the path in which we can reveal our true identity. When you release your creativity, it brings out your true and deep inner identity, your uniqueness. I don't think there's anything else in this world that can bring out your uniqueness more than creativity. And I have championed for this because I've struggled to find my identity for years. That existential question of who am I? You put so many labels, and I realize that's the challenge. We put too many labels in our lives and restrict ourselves. But who are you devoid of all those labels? So even if you make me an accountant, I'll champion creativity. If you make me a bus driver, I'll champion creativity. So that's sort of like my blueprint of identity. So that's who I am.
So, Robert, when I hear of the word creativity, a lot of it is associated with, artists, musicians, and for that introvert out there who is like, that's not for me, how do you define creativity in your own perspective? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question, and I'm happy you asked that because when people hear creativity, they think about artistic expression, and it's a conspiracy, right? An artistic expression is just one form of revealing creativity. Creativity is basically coming up with something that's new or useful, novel, something that's new, something that's novel, and something that is useful, right? So we talk about utility. It must have some form of utility. Now, artistically speaking, musically speaking, is a way of expressing creativity, but it's not the definition of creativity. Creativity is about, as I said, discovering something new. It's about researching and developing something new. So even as an accountant, I can use creativity in my workplace, in my job, finding new ways to present a report. That's what it is in a simplified manner of being creativity. But as I said earlier in my introduction, creativity on a deeper level is also about bringing out your true identity. So I hear people saying, okay, I'm an introvert, or maybe I'm not this, I'm not good at drawing. You don't have to be good at drawing and being creative. If you can dream, if you can imagine, that's what creativity is all about. And neuroscientists tells us that the human brain is wired and built to be creative. It is wired and built to come up with new pathways, new neural pathways. As a matter of fact, if you're not being creative or exercising, quote unquote, your creative muscles, your brain cells are dying, because that's the only way the brain continues to grow and develop, is by using new neural pathways. And new neural pathways is just about using parts of your brain, wiring and firing the parts of your brain that you don't use. So that's why people tend to limit it to arts or music, because you're using parts of your brain. So we all need to use that quote unquote artistic part of our brain, because it helps us to be healthy, to think well, and to grow in our careers. Actually, companies that promote creativity are usually the most profitable and the best in their industry.
I like that, Robert. So I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an employee, or I have a business. We live in a very busy world. Our calendars are always packed with activities here and there. And for me personally, when I look at the most, creative minds, I see them go on vacations on a quiet place so that they can jot down their ideas. But as a mom, it's like I'm always on autopilot. My mind is always running, and it becomes a bit difficult for us to create that moment where I can start exercising those muscles. How do we create that balance in this busy life but still create that time for developing that muscle?
Okay. And it is, as you said, the reality of life. The reality of life. We get busy, we're bogged down. And that is the actual challenge. I'm happy you said that it becomes difficult, but not impossible. right? No one has ever said it's impossible for me to be creative. You see, that's so
Mm-hmm.
it's so weird that sometimes you say, "Oh, I'm not creative," and you ask them, "Okay, by what standard?" Because there's no exam that you can take that say you're creative or not. If you're a human being, your brain is functioning well, you're creative. So it's difficult, but not impossible. What tends to happen is that creativity gets put on the back burner when we surrender agency of our life. So and it goes back to what I was saying at the start, or identity. You're not just a mother, you're still a human being. Before you became a mother, you're a human being. You are you. Being a mother just should enhance who you are. Being a busy corporate person should enhance who you are. And I'm not speaking superficially here, all right? Those who tend to prioritize creativity do exactly that. You take ownership of your life. You have to carve out a few spaces, but you don't have to, contrary to what the title of this podcast is, go big. You don't need to start big, right? You just need to
Yeah.
start very small. And they're quick tips. And we talk about this as creativity thought leaders. You can change what you cook, try a different cuisine. So even in your mundane everyday tasks, you can express creativity. Because creativity is about imagining something and then pursuing it. So even as you're busy cooking, find time, 5 minutes of scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, whatever, look for a new recipe, try it out. That's what spurs or grows your creativity. Those small things is what help to develop. You don't need to go to the Maldives, to Dubai, to open up your
Yeah.
creativity, or to Paris and, look at the paintings, right? So try a new cuisine, try a new route to work. If you're used to working from home, try going into the office. Just that simple transition, because it's now, you see what happens when you get into the routine, you limit your brain to using one part of it, or a small section. Let me say that, not one part, a small section of it. So the brain cells tend to go a bit dormant, and that's why you feel so druggy and tired. But if you're tired and busy of all the routine and you say you just need a break, you'll be surprised if you try something new, you actually get energized. Because we don't just get
Mm-hmm.
tired by what we are doing, we get tired by what we are not doing. So our human bodies, our human brains are built to explore new things, try different things, join a book club. So very small things can help to elevate that creative muscle. But as you said, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. You just have to be intentional about it.
Yeah, and listening to you, it's almost like integrating this creativity with your day-to-day life and exercising it in whatever capacity in your usual, duties and responsibilities, but then also trying to be intentional and creating those spontaneous, opportunities to try something new out of, your usual routine. So
And
that sort of,
you can even do what we call the what if game, right? As you said, you can do the what if game with your children, because some of the most creative people in the world are children, and research shows that by age 5 they're at 98% of their capacity to be creative. But as we go through life, we bog them down with timetable, with schooling, and we kill the creativity out of them, right? So being creative
yeah.
is not something we have to learn to do, right? um Not being creative is something we learn to do. So being creative, it comes naturally. You can do the what if. Okay, hey guys, what if we lived in a different house? How would it look like? So you don't have to actually do something like physical per se. You can start it off by just doing the what if, the imagining. That's what spurs the
Mm-hmm.
creativity, and you'll be shocked. You might. That's how a lot of products have been invented. Let me give you an example right here. My prop, the sticky notes, right? As you can see from
Mm-hmm.
my prop. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
an employee of 3M, the company 3M, they used to give their employees 15% a week to just think. And he decided, look, instead of writing on pieces of paper that get lost, why can't we get a small piece of paper that has an adhesive? And boom, the post-it was created.
Yeah.
That's just from a what if. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us about your books. I know you've written 2 books, and I'm sure maybe there's some more cooking.
Firstly, I don't know if there are any more books cooking. I told myself I'm not writing a book again. It is
Why?
it's difficult. I have dyslexia. I have dyslexia, so
Oh, okay.
writing and really just putting my thoughts together is difficult. Now, of course, not impossible, difficult. I get others to help, editors and so on, to help tell the story. And these days, there's so many AI tools that can help me put my thoughts together. It's just, I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
traumatized. But anyway, the first book that I wrote is called "Blow Your Lid Off: Reclaim Your Stolen Creativity, Increase Your Income, and Let Your Light Shine." I wrote this book for who I call the dissatisfied professional. So you have your corporate job or you have your business and you're doing well, you're doing okay. You're just doing okay, but you're dissatisfied because there's this longing inside of us to pursue our dreams. And that's what I'm saying. Creativity brings us identity. It doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter how many awards you win. If you've not scratched that itch inside of you, if you've not pursued it, you will be dissatisfied. You just won't live a fulfilling life. So you find some of the most happiest people are not necessarily the richest people, but are people who have pursued their dreams, even if they didn't work out exactly. So I wrote that book to help people, go after your dreams, pursue your dreams. I always said I wanted to write a book, and that was me living that out in that book. My second book came on the heels of the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, mental health crisis, went across the world. And one thing I realized, particularly for us as Africans or of African origin, we're really not taught how to ask for help. Think about it. Growing up, you know, just jog your mind back. I mean, asking for help was demonized, if you want to call it that, right? Who could you even ask for help? So we're not taught how to ask for help. So we live in this globalized world where collaboration and teamwork is boost, and we even put it on our CV. Great team player, a great collaborator. But really and truly, we get into work, we struggle with a task, and we really don't know how to ask for help. We just don't know. It's not something we've been taught intentionally. So we do it the way we think, and then we can sit with a lot of anger and like, oh, no one wants to help me, and then we feel isolated. We feel desolate because we just don't know how to ask for help. And asking for help doesn't have to be dehumanizing. It doesn't have to be like going on your knees. You can ask for help with your chest high, with your head held high, with your chest out, not in a proud manner, but in a very humble but strong position. So I wrote that book to teach people how to ask for help and give a framework and a tool on how do you really ask for help? Because I've seen so many people suffer just because they just don't know how to ask. How do you raise your hand? And that's why the book is called Raise Your Hand. Like in
Mm.
class, and the teacher said, "Do you have any questions? Raise your hand." I mean, it's so scary to raise your hand in the classroom and in life. How do we destigmatize that? And at the time of this recording, it's November, where we normally have the No Shave November month to raise mental health awareness for men. Because I think us men, we struggle with that a bit with talking about our issues. Women will gather together and talk about the issues, but we will sit very quietly and stew with our issues until it becomes a big problem. So that's what I've written about so far. I mean, in terms of what's coming up, it really depends on what I see a need to look at. But these days with social media, we write short text and so on. But a book, I don't know. It depends on what's in the offering. Yeah.
Let me take you back to the book Raise Your Hand. So, my personal experience as an immigrant is, because of all those factors, I was not raised, born, brought up here. Sometimes you find it hard or difficult to raise your hand and you feel limited, or you feel like, is this even worth asking in the first place? What
Yeah.
advice would you give to other people in a similar situation?
That's a great scenario. You're an immigrant, you're in a different land, so you already have this mindset that you're an outsider, all right? But
Mm-hmm.
you're not an outsider. The thing is with raising your hand and asking for help, what I talk about in my book is that you must reclaim your dignity. My first book talked about reclaim your creativity, but this is reclaiming your dignity. The people who can raise their hand in the classroom and in life are those who say, you know what, I deserve attention. I deserve to be helped. I am worthy to be assisted. I have something to offer. I am not a beggar. Those are the people who can boldly raise their hand. So for those who are an immigrant, and I've lived in different countries, and it can be very difficult. But the first thing you need to do is establish you need to accept and believe that, look, you are worthy to be assisted. You belong here. You didn't sneak on the fence. You didn't climb over Trump's wall. You didn't, you are here. You're a human being. You are an
Mm-hmm.
equal human being as anyone else. You're wanting to improve your life and improve your career. Ask for help. And I go through all those details in the book, but ask the right time, knowing when to ask for help and knowing how to
Yeah.
ask for help. Of course, when you're in a different area, different country, a different cultural setting, you need to understand the culture there. Right. So asking for
Mm-hmm.
help also has some cultural innuendos that you need to observe. That's how you
Yeah.
improve your chances and success rate of getting help. So asking for help could be doing research. I find a lot of times when we ask for help, Many people haven't done a bit, at least basic research, so you know specifically. So you're an
Mm-hmm.
immigrant, you don't understand the financial system. You just say, "Hey, I need someone to help me with my finances." That's putting too much on someone,
Too right.
right? That's putting too
Mm-hmm.
much on someone. So get a starting point and say, "Hey, where I'm coming from, this is how a financial system works. This is what I found out. Can you help me navigate this particular part?" And the biggest tip I give people is try not to look for one solution or one person to solve your entire problem. You have to break your problems down into small bite-sized pieces so people are more easy to help. If you come to me with a simple problem that I don't have to dedicate too much of my time, great. But if you bring me the whole enchiladas, like how do you make, you come and tell me, look, can you help me become a millionaire? Eh, that's a big commitment. That's a big commitment. So
Yeah.
also just being aware of that. It sounds so simple. It sounds simple, but I said because we are not taught these things, it just doesn't ring in our consciousness. So break the problem down and don't put too much on people. And also look, there are people who are willing to help. There's so many people willing to help. So knowing the right people to ask for help, knowing when to ask that help. I'm an accountant. Don't come asking me for help during tax season unless it's about taxes. I just
Yeah.
I can't give you that attention. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about you, Robert, is your authenticity. And I saw you're one of the few people that publicly went to talk about a moment in your life when things didn't go the way you expected. I'm referring to the ACCA elections that were recently held, where you were contending against 28 other people, and then, things didn't work out, but you still went ahead and posted it on your LinkedIn. So whenever I scroll through LinkedIn, everyone is showcasing, their celebrations, the good things that are working for them, and nobody really talks about this other side. Tell us something about that, and why you went public about it.
I think the first thing I'll say, why not? Right? Why not go public with something that didn't work out? Right? It's how you frame, it's our mindset, it's our approach, it's how we construct things in our minds, right? We've made social media this trophy showcase. So how do we learn the
Yeah.
steps? How do we learn the process? I don't want always to look every time I log into LinkedIn, I'm pleased to announce I've started a new role, I've started a new business, I've launched a new product. You just don't see someone said I am on the journey. What's motivated me is that throughout my life, I've always told people that I want you to see the process. And it's pain, quote unquote painful, because there are people who disassociate with you. So people is like, oh, you're
Mm-hmm.
just a failure. But I want people to see that when I make it, okay, I don't know if I've made it, but as I'm making it, let me say that as I'm making it, I
Yes.
want people to see that. And I'll give you an example. The reason why I'd make those posts, because when it happens, I want people to see that it just doesn't happen. I had some friends, we took a trip like 6 years ago. I remember telling them I'm going to be an international speaker, and I was like, I'm tired of us always looking for this speaker from the America or from the UK or whatever. Why can't Black Africans go and speak across the world? And
Mm-hmm.
and of course, people were just like, "Yo, you're crazy." They disassociate with you because your dreams are just unreal. And if
Wild.
and if a dream is understood by everyone else, then it's not a dream, right? And that's why I push for creativity, because it's supposed to be something that you have given. The dream is for you. It's for you to fulfill, and you have dream supporters along the way. But not everyone won't feel the passion you have. That was about 6 years ago. I mean, today, the way I'm sitting, where I'm standing, I won TED's Global Idea Search 2021. TED Talk was launched June 21st, 2021, went viral, 500,000 views in the first 48 hours. I mean, how much more
Wow.
international can you get as TED, right? And when that happened, one of those persons actually sent me a message and told me, you said you're going to do this 5 years ago. I don't even remember. I could not remember because I didn't take it personal. When they didn't accept me, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't take it personal. So I have no problem posting about like my failure that I didn't make it to the ACCA thing. Look, I made it to the ballot. I made it to one of 28, right? So
Yep.
statistically, I almost could have made it. So I'm
Yep.
not embarrassed to post that I didn't make it. Let me own the narrative. And I think that's how I sum it up. I want to own the narrative of my success story. I don't want people to say, oh, there are gaps and whatever. We don't know how we got from here to there. I want to own the narrative. And that's something we don't do as much as Africans and people of African descent. We don't own the narrative. A lot of people say, look, the greatest tragedy is that Africans don't read. I say absolute rubbish, right? Absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
The greatest tragedy is that Africans don't write because those who write own the narrative. Those who write have the power
Yeah.
of the pen. Those who write shape narrative. Those who write are thought leaders. You can't write if you're not a thought leader. So let me
Yeah.
write my success story, even as I'm failing. One of my mentees says that I'm a successful failure
Wow.
because
I like that.
I fail, but I succeed at failing. I don't allow failure to stop me. I keep moving forward.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about your podcast. Why is it coming black and not coming back?
Good question. You want to talk about my my podcast has been on a hiatus for like almost 2 years. Yeah, but let's put it out there. Yeah, so my podcast is called Coming Black to Africa. Very intentional. Why Coming Black is not a typo. The main purpose of the podcast is to call us people of African origin, descent. And when I say African, I don't just mean people born in Africa. Right? So Afro-Caribbean,
Yeah.
Afro-UK, if you're black, you're an African origin. Right? Accept it or not, that's just a fact. And
Yeah.
I'm calling people not just back to physical Africa. A lot of people want to come and visit Africa, but their mindset has not changed. They come with a very Western mindset. And I'm not saying an African mindset is not one of poverty, it's not one of mediocrity. That's not it. So I call the podcast Coming Black to Africa because I need people to come back to their blackness, right? Their blackness in that knowing that Africa is the source of all the rich, the biggest nutrients, the most nutrients, natural resources. We are wealthy in thought, in beauty, in everything, right? So I want people to
Hmm.
come black. So I'm pulling people to come physically back to Africa to visit. Come take a shot, even if you've immigrated to wherever you've gone to. Make sure you keep in touch with your roots. See what is happening because it's here. It is here is where you will find the best part of you, right? Even with all the struggles and with all the challenges. So the podcast helps us to come black, to understand our blackness, to own our blackness as a collective, so that we may rise this vibration. We rise this thinking and we can support each other. So when we come black, we realize, look, we used to have very strong community ties. Let's support one another. Let's lift one another. I tell people if a black person created Windows, right, instead of Bill Gates, and was looking for
Hmm.
funding, do you really think they will have the success that we see today? Would we rally and support the way we do? And that's a challenge. We need homegrown solutions, homegrown funding. And I'm personally working on a project where we're putting together diasporans and Africans to fund the project, to work on the project, to think on the project, to let it go. And when it blows up, then it'll be a good example. So that's what the podcast is, just calling people black to Africa. So even if you don't
Yeah.
physically come, you come black. Because I grew up in the Caribbean, and when I came back to Kenya, I mean, it was it's not mind blowing. It was heart shaking. It was soul inspiring. Yeah, it was. It was soul inspiring because like you just feel this, and everyone I interview on my podcast I talk to, that's why I started the podcast. People's like, there's just something that happens to you. You feel
Hmm.
this renewed sense. Now that you've immigrated and you come back, you're gonna realize, wait, I've been sleeping on this thing, right? I need to
Hmm.
own myself, own my culture, own my heritage.
Yeah. East or west, home is always the best. I like your definition that home is not a physical place, but accepting who you are, where you're coming from, and understanding your roots and being proud of that whole process. Now, as we wrap up, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, this question is this always bugs my mind. The advice I give my younger self is advice I give a lot of my mentees. So as I give the advice, let me maybe just give you some context in that when I talk about Africans don't write, we don't own narratives, we don't think. And one thing I've started doing is coming up with quotations, timeless quotations that can outlive me so that people can know, this is a good path to go. So the advice I'd give my younger self is that bravery must come before mastery. Bravery always comes before mastery. whatever pursuit you're going to do in life, whatever thing you want to go after, whatever thing you want to anything you dream of, it doesn't matter the great plans you have, it doesn't matter all the funding you have. If you're not willing to be courageous, then forget about it. Because courage comes before confidence. A lot of people say, I'm going to do it when I feel ready. No, being ready is first a decision you make before it becomes a position you take. You have to first decide. You got to decide that I'm ready for the challenge, not ready for success. A lot of people say, I want to be ready for success. No, you got to be ready for the challenge. And the challenge is what helps you build the confidence to get the success. So you speak to any athlete or any business person, they're confident something would work is because they went through the challenge. So that's the advice I'll give to my younger self and to anyone who's watching, even if you're older than me right now, right? It's got to be courage, because the older we get, we lose courage. We fear, we restrict ourselves, we hold ourselves back. Courage is a vote of confidence in ourselves. Give yourself a vote of confidence, Robert. Give yourself a vote of confidence, viewer, listener, whatever platform you're following this on. Bravery must come before mastery. Don't try to become an expert. Try to become brave, and then mastery will come.